Hi, my name's Barrie Crampton. Welcome to another episode of Life in the Motor Trade, I suppose. Life's hard and then you die. This one's called Money Isn't Everything. I've learned this lesson over and over throughout my career in the motor trade. So it was my first day as new car sales manager. I was working for a very big player in the car industry. I was already unimpressed with my superiors. The guy who'd hired me arranged to meet me, to introduce me to my new colleagues in the morning, and he never turned up. So I ended up walking into the garage unannounced as the new sales manager. Bit of a shock to the system, really. Alarm bells were already sounding and I was starting to wonder whether I'd made a big mistake. I'd just left a job that I really liked, and the people there were very nice, and it was a great firm, good fun there, and I'd left that job for this one. And a few months prior, I'd attended 2 interviews on the same day. The first garage asked me to start immediately or the next day, and I reported for work, and I really enjoyed it. But the owners were very switched on, very nice people, gentlemen. The owner and his son, both nice guys. The staff were all friendly, and the product was pretty good too, I have to say. However, the money wasn't. I'd started as a sales executive. I'd left a job as sales manager. I kind of wanted a break and no aggravation. The funny thing was, I didn't want any aggravation. I just wanted to be myself and just go home at, clock on at 9 o'clock and go home at 5 o'clock, 5:30, whenever we finished, with no aggravation. Now, when I went for the interview, I was sat waiting, and the sales manager was interviewing another candidate in the office. And all of a sudden, one of the salesmen came over to me and he said, "Are you here for the interview?" So I said, "Yeah." "Can you work finance quotes out?" So I said, "Well, yeah." He says, can you help me?" So anyway, I went out, sat at his desk with the customer who he was trying to deal and quote finance figures, and I quoted him finance figures and I dealt him. So that was at my interview. Interviews don't really get any better than that. I'd also just basically had 2 years off and taught myself how to code web pages, how to make a website, and I had all sorts of ideas basically where I wouldn't need to get up out of my chair to see customers. I thought I could do fleet and leasing, get all the cars in stock, I'd do the finance and leasing quotes, and then I'd send them off to my leasing companies, which I'd already had as sales manager at Mercedes-Benz beforehand. I turned up on the first day with my laptop. I'd already made a website, and I just went on the machine, and the machine, funnily enough, was the same as the one at Mercedes-Benz. So the finance machine was the same one as Mercedes-Benz, so I already knew how to do it. By the end of the day, I'd got all the cars, all the quotes, all the cars that had come in, and clicked the button and emailed it off to all my leasing and fleet contacts. Now, the other company was a PLC. The subsequent procedure, the subsequent employment procedure, had to go through a lot of red tape, and 2 months later, out of the blue, they rang me and offered me the job. Now, because I was attending 2 interviews on the same day, I had a little dictaphone, a little Olympus dictaphone, and I recorded both interviews, so I knew afterwards what I'd been offered. Didn't get the 2 mistaken, which turned out to be a kind of a lifesaver, really. At the interview for the PLC, they told me that they'd be branching out to America in the near future. And that's really what I wanted to do. At that time, I wanted to go to America. I thought I could, have a better life. Whether I could or not, I don't know. Better place, better climate. As he already knew, I was kind of IT savvy, and I'd got a proven record of success. They intimated that if I worked as hard for them, then I'd be able to step up to dealer principal in the US in no time. I've always wanted to move to a warmer country, and this carrot proved irresistible and was a more attractive proposition to me than the money, really. So I'd been at this other place for 2 months. I broke the news to my boss, who I really liked. And he was genuinely upset to see me go. In fact, he was so upset, they called in the boss came to try and persuade me, and he promised me a sales manager's job. He said he realised I was too good, and he wanted me to stay in his organisation, and he would actually get me a sales manager's job. And again, as luck would have it, while he was talking to me, he got a phone call, and I could hear one side of the conversation, and it was, "Oh, have you tried phoning him?" Not answering, right, okay. The sales administrator's not turned up either. Oh, there you go. I knew what had happened straight away. When he put the phone down, I said to him, "You need to check your accounts." Sure enough, the general manager had been entertaining the sales administrator. His pockets weren't deep enough. He'd borrowed a few quid from the firm, realised he couldn't pay it back, there was going to be an audit soon, and he just disappeared. They did get him in the end. I think he'd had £60,000. So that's another lesson. You can never trust anybody in the motor trade. If you get good staff in the motor trade, you should really look after them, not let them go, because they are very, very hard to find. Unfortunately, and I'll visit this in another blog, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. While I was out that day at work, the new firm delivered a demonstrator to me. Of course, it was my last day. The sales manager made sure I was otherwise engaged, while him and the rest of the lads covered my demonstrator in stickers that effectively said, kind of, "Stop me and buy one." I think it had £149. Absolutely all over the car, the bonnet, the roof, the sides, the boot. You know, it was all over. I didn't know that they'd do it. So when I left for the last time, they all come out to say goodbye. Good lads. I'm to this day, I'm really sorry I left. But they all came out and said goodbye in turn, and they all added that they wouldn't want. I'd had a PT Cruiser and a Wrangler Jeep, 4-litre Wrangler Jeep, and now I'd got this blooming Ford Focus with £149 all over it. So I put a brave face on it, and I told them that I didn't mind what I drove. You know, it was only 4 wheels. But I'd already decided that I wouldn't be seen dead in it. So the next day, I arrived at my new place of work, parked in the sales manager's space, and wondered to myself why all the other demos weren't covered with stickers. Then the penny dropped. As I'd been instructed, I waited for my new boss on the car park, but eventually I got fed up and wandered into the showroom, where I was totally ignored. I tried to attract someone's attention, but without much success. Eventually, I got somebody and I was shown to my desk. It was the odd job man, again, a nice guy. Now, it would seem that the previous sales manager had left in a hurry, or escorted off the premises. There were still pictures of his family, and his PC was, well, my PC now, my computer, was password protected. I studied the pictures of him and his wife and decided that he looked very young compared to her. And after a while, looking at his pictures and cross-referencing them with the model range that we were selling, I figured that I knew enough about him to have a go at breaking his password. Looking at his wife, who was very, very nice, I must say, I typed in Cougar. But it was wrong, and the PC still wouldn't start up. My boredom was interrupted by a phone on my desk ringing, and I picked it up, eager to impress. But before I got time to answer, I was shouted down by the caller. The caller said, "You effing B." I was a little bit taken aback, but I recovered quickly and replied, "How do you come to that conclusion? Just from hello? You must be Physic." I said Physic because I'd seen Paul Newman say it in a film years ago, and it cracked me up. And it worked on the caller too, because it threw him off his guard, and he obviously thought that he'd been put through to a complete moron. But it gave me time to reply. So I said, "Now listen, mate, I've only been here for an hour or so. If you'd like to tell me the problem, I'll do my best to sort it out for you." He calmed down and he told me that his daughter had bought a car off us, which he was told was brand new. Same's happening these days, it never changes. But when the logbook came through, it had been pre-registered. So it had been pre-registered in the name of the garage. She was actually shown as the second owner, and it had only been taxed for 6 months. So a couple of weeks after she'd taken delivery, her road tax had run out. I'm a pretty honest guy for a car dealer, I suppose, and I hate liars and thieves. So I asked my sales administrator to dig the file out with the original order form. Sure enough, it was written up on a new car order form showing 12 months road tax. I couldn't argue the guy who'd done this deal was actually an effing B, but that wasn't me. In fairness, the car was only delivery mileage, it hadn't been used by anybody, and they got a pretty good deal. So I offered to pay for a further 12 months if his daughter was willing to accept this as a compromise. I expected that as a manager, it would be within my powers to agree to tax the vehicle for 12 months in order to pacify an irate customer and stop a complaint. However, I learned later that it wasn't, and I got my first reprimand. This to me was a red rag to a bull. I'd like to think that my word's my bond, and I told my boss that I'd pay for it myself rather than suffer the embarrassment of ringing back to say the garage wouldn't. I already knew the firm were tough to work for, as they'd warned me at the interview, if a part exchange was still there after 90 days, I wouldn't be. But I didn't know they'd treat customers like this. I'd only been there for a few hours, and it looked like it had already cost me £90. This wasn't how it was supposed to work. They should be paying me. Then I overheard a conversation between the service manager and the other sales manager that I wished I hadn't. The company sold their part exchanges off, their old part exchanges, to the public under a different name, and a customer had brought one back complaining that it was burning oil. The service manager confirmed that the piston rings were knackered on the car and came to report his findings. He estimated that the repair would cost in the region of £1,000, to which the used car sales manager said they only get a 30-day warranty. Fill it as full as you can with oil, and by the time the red light comes on again, it'll be too late for him to bring it back. It knocked me a bit sick, really. Anyway, a bright spot on the horizon came when one of the salesmen brought an order form for a deal that he was working on. I checked the figures with my calculator, and although the total was right, the VAT and everything else was way off. So I asked him how he arrived at the figures. I asked, never thinking for one moment that I would get the answer. I copied them off another order form. Now, my normally sunny disposition had been stretched to the limit, and I snapped back. Are you some kind of idiot? If you're going to do that, at least copy the figures off a car that's the same price as the one you're selling. And with that, I screwed his order form up and slam dunked it into the waste bin. But I kind of regretted doing that, because later I learned he was a bare-knuckle fighter, and I only learned that when I was warned to be careful after I intervened to break up a brawl in the showroom between him and another salesman. They were arguing over a deal, and it had turned into handbags at 10 yards. The last time I'd had this much fun was at my dad's funeral. What had I let myself in for? Surely things couldn't get any worse, but they did when the other manager turned to me and said, "Seeing as it's your first day, I'll do the late night tonight, if you do tomorrow." What late night's this then? He says, "We're open till 8 PM every night." By now I'd had enough. "Look, you might work till 8 o'clock, but my contract says 8:30 till 5:30, and I'm not married, so I look forward to going home occasionally." So he said, yeah, they put that on the contracts so they don't breach the employment rules. Oh, by the way, you only get one weekend off a month too. It would take me an hour to get to work that morning, and I had to set off at 7:30 AM. These hours would mean that I wouldn't be getting back home till 9 o'clock at night. I'd never have taken the job if I'd known about the real hours. I was still waiting for the guy who gave me the job to come and introduce me to everyone, and I'd already decided that I couldn't work for this company. So I rang him to tell him, but he was on another call. So I left an urgent message to ask him to ring me back. I'd left the urgent message on Monday afternoon. Things hadn't got any better on Tuesday, and it was now Wednesday. I handed my cars to the other manager, and I started on my 18-mile walk home, wondering to myself if there was any decent people left in the motor trade. 10 years later, and I still don't have the definitive answer. It's not looking good, I have to be honest. A couple of weeks later, I still hadn't got the money. I'd taken time off before to go to a sales managers meeting, and at this sales managers meeting, I was taking notes, and somebody said they were doing the budget for next year's cars, next year's sales, and they'd budgeted to lose £30 on each Ford Fiesta, and lose £30 on each Fiesta, yeah, to get our bonuses. We've got to sell enough cars to get our bonuses. If we don't get our bonuses, we cease to exist. All right, So I said, what about making money on the Ford Fiestas, and then we wouldn't have to rely on the bonuses? I'd never lost money in my life on a car up until that point, so that was very, very strange to me. I couldn't believe it. It was like idiocy. Anyway, I spent all day with the rest of these sales managers, and that was one of my kind of days off. So after I'd left and gone home, I didn't get paid. I never got the money. So I'd spoken to the wages department, and the girl, I'd only been there 3 days, but I'd got on quite well with the staff. And the girl in the wages department said, he's told me not to pay you. He's told me not to send you the money that we owe you. So, right, fair enough. So then I tried to ring him at head office. He wasn't taking the call. I waited till the next day, and then I rang up. I gave a fake name and said I was from the lottery. And he answered. So I said to him, I haven't been paid. And he said, oh, I don't know why that would be. I'll check into it. I said, well, I can save you checking. It's because you've told them not to pay me. I'd appreciate it if you rang them and told them to pay me now. Right, let me try and sort it out. Anyway, 2 weeks went by, and I didn't get any money. So I then rang Human Resources, and I got a very nice lady, Human Resources, and she said to me, I'm sorry, there isn't really a lot I can do about it. And I said, okay, I'll see you at a tribunal. Tribunal for what? So I said, well, you've broke my contract. And she said, no, we've got your contract here. So I said, yeah, that's the one you gave me when I started, but the one you told me. And she said, well, how can you prove that? So I said, listen, I'm just going to go and make myself a cup of tea, and I'm just going to play you a recording. So I clicked the recording on, and it was the recording of the interview where they told me I was off every other weekend and I was finishing at 5:30 and all stuff like that. And it was just a load of bull. I come back with my cup of tea. I said, did you hear? And she said, yes. You'll have a check in the post tomorrow. That was it. That's what we get in the car trade all the time. You can't trust anybody. So, I do like the car trade, but over the years it's been very challenging. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.